Yep, they call it rejection therapy. And they said, I asked what happens on rejection therapy day, and the one guy says, I have a date every single weekend, because one day a month I walk up to the most beautiful people I could find and say, hey, will you go to dinner with me? And he says, the answer is always the same. I don't even know you. He says, I know. But one day a month I try to be rejected as many times as possible. It makes me a better man. He says, apparently that's really interesting. And being interesting is more important than being hot. Which I wish someone had told me on my first day of high school. He goes, we'll walk into Subway and we'll just be like, can we make our own sandwich? He's like, the sandwich artists are not paid enough to care. They're like, here's a hairnet and gloves, go to town. He's like, we walk up to police and we're like, can we shoot stop signs like in Superbad? He goes, 3 things that we've learned. 1, you are not rejected nearly as often as you think you're going to be. Sometimes you have to work at it. 2, when you expect to be rejected, when you're trying to be rejected, and it happens, it actually feels like an accomplishment. And that starts to spill over to the rest of your life. And 3, he goes, and maybe this is a Canadian thing. Even when you are rejected, you are almost always offered something better than what you currently have. He goes, no cop ever let us shoot anything. But 2 of them let us drive their squad car around. That question, my friend, that question's been a game changer in my life. I got to drive a Formula 2000 race car. I got to ride in a private jet. I got to eat at chef's tables and Michelin star restaurants. I met the love of my life because of that question. Bring courage back into your life, because I think we educated it out of you and you kind of bring it back in. What did you try today that might not work but tried anyway? It's a game changer. Make it a part of your life every day, because it is not confidence that determines leaders. Confidence is acting like something doesn't scare you, but you don't have to do anything. Courage only happens when something scares you and you take action anyway. So you can act confident, but you never have to do anything to prove it. But courage, you don't need confidence to have courage. Confidence is acting. Courage is acting. If that makes any sense. Growth is a commitment to expand the capacity to add value. Leaders add value to other people's lives. Every time you're a catalyst for learning, you're actually engaging in the value of growth. One of the best ways of doing that is by asking incredibly good questions. Here's a challenge for you. Tomorrow, make no statements, give no advice, tell no stories. Only ask questions. You will be the most fascinating person in every room that you're in if all you do is ask questions. And it's not just any questions. If you want to help people learn, there's a particular type of question you have to get good at. That is the type of question where the person being asked learns more than the person doing the asking. You know who's incredibly good at this? 5-year-olds. 5-year-olds are relentless in their questioning. And if you can't BS a 5-year-old, they see right through it. You know how different politics would be if every single politician had to stand in front of a press room full of 5-year-olds every day? Can you see that? Huckabee Sanders up there being, yes, you. That's not what you said yesterday. That doesn't seem nice. How is that fair? And they're relentless. They will keep asking questions. Any of you spent time with 5-year-olds? I once had a 5-year-old ask me if I was the Pope. I don't care how many Q&As you've done in your life, you're not ready for that question. But he was 5, and they were talking about the Pope in his class. And when you're 5 and you're talking about a stranger, and a stranger walks in, oh, it's the dude. So he looks up at me and he says, oh, are you the Pope? I looked down at him and I said, no, I'm here to give a speech for your teachers. He says, oh, what's a speech? I've given 1,000 of these things. I have never been directly asked that question before. But every now and then you're smarter than you think, and your brain surprises you. Because I looked down at him and I said, a speech is an opportunity to change minds. That's actually the noise my brain made to itself. It actually went, nice. And this kid looks at me and he says, oh, how do you know that you should? Shut up. And we need to get you out of school school before we wreck you. Because we stopped asking follow-up questions. Ask follow-up questions. You know what my favorite question like that is? That I asked specifically, designed to help people realize and learn about themselves? And I'm not actually going to make you answer it in front of all of these people, but imagine I looked you right in the eye right now, or any one of you looked you right in the eye and posed you this one. Why do you matter? Sucks, doesn't it? First person I ever asked was a student just before he graduated, undergrad. First time in your life where you don't know exactly what to do next, right? When you're in elementary school, you know you're going to high school. When you're in high school, you're supposed to go to college, university, that gets pounded in your head, right? But at the end of your first degree, it's the first time for a lot of people, like, I'm not sure what to do next. Do I go to work? Do I take a year off? Do I do grad school? And he was really freaked out, and he was an incredible guy. And so it was the first time I ever asked anyone that question. And I didn't know what it did to people. I just said, why do you matter, Kyle? And he blinked twice. And then he said, well, I don't yet. That's why I'm working so hard. That is an unacceptable answer to get from anyone that you care about. But I started asking other students, same thing. I started asking professionals, same thing. I started asking CEOs, same thing. I cannot believe how many people of all ages are going through this life thinking, I don't matter yet, that's why I'm working so hard. 15 years in higher education, and I started to ask myself, how can we claim that what we're delivering to you is an education when some of the most dynamic, generous, compassionate, driven, well-educated people on the planet can't answer why do you matter? Because no one's ever asked you before. And if we're not going to do it, ask each other, ask yourself, because you do. The problem is, for 20 years of education, nobody asked you that question. And we pay the most attention to the things on which we're going to be tested. And no one's ever tested you on asking you, why do you matter? Think about it, because until you believe that you do, you can't convince other people that they do. And leadership is doing that, is reminding people and showing people that they matter. And you have to start with you. What have I done today to make it more likely someone would learn something? You know how to do it? Ask incredible questions. Be curious. Ask questions that are designed to make people realize, I don't know the answer, but I want to find out. Because that'll bug you all day. And one day, all of a sudden tomorrow in the shower, you'll be like, this is the answer. Damn it, I knew that. You want to know the answer to why do you matter? Ask your best friend. They'll knock it out of the park for you. Empowerment, a commitment to acting as a catalyst for the success of others. I worry that when we're really young, that we start teaching competition. Like, think about it. The first time you ever got a grade, you know what we started to teach you? Man, why would they be grading us if it wasn't to rank us? And why would they rank us if it wasn't to make sure the people at the top get something the people at the bottom don't get? And so we adopt this idea that we live in this world of scarcity, where there's only so much jobs, there's only so many jobs, there's only so much money, and if you don't get it, she will. And we start to embrace this idea that we live in this economy of scarcity. And this idea that we live in an economy of scarcity where anything that you get is a little less for you is the source of so many of the things of which we're ashamed in our society. It is the source of greed, it is the source of jealousy, it is the source of people building their empires from the exploitation of other human beings, and it is the source of the bullying that begins in our playgrounds and goes all the way up through our schools, all the way up to the very top parts of leadership in our world. I believe that leaders embrace a different type of economy, an economy of abundance. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. Maybe there is only so much money, and maybe there are only so many jobs. But there is no limit to the amount of satisfaction that's available. There is no limit to the amount of happiness that is available. And there is no limit to the amount of self-worth that is available if we can find a way to separate happiness, satisfaction, and self-worth from our job titles and from our paychecks. And one of the things that I try to tell students, particularly students who are about to enter the workforce, look, if you can outperform 90% of the people on the planet at something, cool. You'll probably make 6 figures. But if you can become the type of person where everyone who works with you outperforms everyone who doesn't work with you, then you're indispensable. And that's so much more rare in this world. Don't try to outperform each other. Try to become indispensable to one another. And one of the great questions to be able to ask every day is, what have I done today to help someone else move closer to a goal? You talk about building community, that's your theme here. You build a community not just by doing your part, but by empowering other people to do their parts better as well. Make that question part of your life every day, because that may be one of the most important leadership questions there is. Class is a commitment to treating people and situations better than they deserve to be treated. I'm going to teach you 3 words that save relationships and save careers. Elevate, don't escalate. Every time someone's pissing you off, 3 words run through your head. Elevate, don't escalate. Elevate, don't escalate. Leaders elevate situations which means you try to succeed, instead of escalate, which means you try to win. People will collaborate, people will compromise when they see it as a discussion on how to succeed, but they will dig in and they will defend their position when they see it as a battle to win. That's the key. How did I elevate instead of escalate today? We're the only creatures on the planet who have a gap between stimulus and response. Your leadership, your success, your relationships will in large part be determined by how you use the gift of that gap. 3 words: elevate, don't escalate. Don't try to win, try to succeed. And finally, this is the value upon which all others are built: self-respect. You know others without. There is no hole in your life that cannot be filled with self-respect. And it's a commitment to making decisions that recognize 4 things. 1, you have as much right to happiness as anyone else on the planet. You do. The problem is we don't believe that because you know every crappy thing you've ever done. Every time you lied, every time you cheated, every time that you were a little bit dishonest, you know that. And so you always think of those things. And when happiness gets handed out, you kind of think, well, he's a great guy. He volunteers. He never lies. He deserves happiness before me. This is why it's so important, man. It doesn't matter what titles you have. It doesn't matter what other people think you achieved because you always know how you actually behave. So the only true way to feel like a leader is to make sure that your behavior is something that you're proud of. So you have as much right to happiness as anyone else does. You cannot add value to anyone else's life until you've added enough value to your own. If you are empty, you have nothing to give. Leadership is not martyrdom. You have to make sure that you add value to your life so that you can actually do it for others. Your happiness is your responsibility. I hope that people treat you well. I hope they treat you with respect and kindness because you deserve that. But you're not entitled to it. Your happiness is your responsibility. If you always look externally for people to deliver happiness to you, you don't develop the skill of being able to generate it for yourself, and it's an essential skill. I heard a great speaker once say, if everywhere you go sucks, and everyone you know sucks, you suck. Fix it. And finally, happiness is not possible without forgiveness. The number one thing that you could do right now that would instantly make your life better, that you're completely in control of, is forgive. Number one. It would instantly make every one of your lives better. Every single one of you in this room has someone that you wish you could call, you wish you could text, you wish you could have coffee with, you wish you could share parts of your life with, and the only reason you can't is you haven't said I'm sorry or you haven't heard I'm sorry. Fix that. I'm 41 years old. I've been to the funerals of 19 of my friends, including the love of my life. I've only been to 9 of their weddings. That means I've lost too many people in ways I cannot control to not tell every audience who will listen. If you can save a relationship, if you can save a friendship by simply saying I'm sorry or hearing I'm sorry, do it. Do it now. Because it's extraordinary strength and it's extraordinary courage. There is no worse feeling than going to the funeral of someone you desperately cared about and the last thing you said to them was terrible. That has happened to me twice. Leaders go to bed every single night knowing that can't possibly happen. What have I done today to be good to myself? This is essential every single day. Happiness has to be cultivated. When you're having a good day, do something for the pissed off version of you 3 days from now. Like, there's not much in my life that's consistent. I'm on the road 250 days a year. The only real thing that's consistent in my life is there's usually a power plant behind me. So what I did one day is I actually decided to put photographs in my PowerPoint. Every photograph you see in this PowerPoint, I took it. Every one of them represents a moment of peace, joy, happiness, or awe, and I built it into my day. You drive to school, put the photograph of someone you love hanging from your rearview mirror on the back of your door of your apartment as you leave. One extra smile a day. You do that today, for 5 years it can do that. Now sometimes the people you love, you don't like them very much. So my photograph is double-sided in my car. One side is my parents, on the other side is Jennifer Lawrence. 6 questions, 2 of them designed to add value to other people, 2 of them designed to add value to yourself, 2 of them designed to add value to both. If I got all 6 of those every day of the year, I'd add over 2,000 conscious pieces of value, conscious acts of leadership tied to my core values every single year. The thing is, you don't have to do that. You just have to pass the test every day. 3 out of 6, that's still over 1,000 moments of leadership in your life that every single person in this room is capable of doing. Let's take a look at yours. You can take these three. These are Alpha Phi Omega's values: leadership, friendship, and service. What did I do today that reflects my core values? That's leadership. How did I strengthen a personal bond today? That's friendship. How did I contribute to something bigger than myself today? That's service. You get 2 out of 3, you pass the leadership test, you are reflecting what this organization is all about. And instead of just like a vague, nebulous desire to do it, make those questions a part of your life. Then you're actually proving it to yourself. It's a guide through uncertainty. When you don't know what the future holds, you do know what today holds. And I think that's key. But I didn't think of leadership like that back in the day. I thought it was this tiny club that not everyone can or should get into. And the reason that I work so hard to get good grades and get scholarships is because when you get into the club, you get more money and respect. You get more opportunities, and everybody in the club looked like me. So I just assumed I had the right to be in there. And then some girl screwed it all up when she was 18 years old. Because she came up to me on my last night at my university. I was at my first university for so long that the university paid for my goodbye party. And she came up to me and she said, "I remember the first time I ever met you. And when you're a drinker, you don't like that." But she told me a good story. And she said, 4 years ago was the night before I started university here. And I was in a hotel room with my mom and my dad. And for whatever reason, I was completely overcome with doubt. I wasn't ready for this. This city is too big. I'm from a small town. I'm not smart enough. All these kids know more than I do. And she goes, the doubt was so powerful that I actually started to cry. And my parents hadn't seen me cry in 8 years. But there is nowhere to hide in a hotel room. And they were amazing. They said, "Look, we know you were scared. Trust us, we are way more scared than you are. But you worked so hard for this, you owe it to yourself to try." So here's the deal. We go tomorrow to the first day of registration. And at any point, once we're on campus, if you think you can't do this, we will take you home and we love you no matter what. But if you don't at least try tomorrow, you'll regret that the rest of your life. And our job as your parents is to make sure that doesn't happen. She goes, "I knew they were right. My whole life had been about going to college or university. I've been told there's really no way to be successful without doing that. So I went and I got in line on the first day. And everybody was screaming. Face paint, matching t-shirts, coordinated cheers. Because people who plan orientation activities are almost always extroverts. And they plan activities extroverts love. Let's all yell together. Let's meet a whole bunch of strangers. If you're an introvert, not your idea of a good time. And she says, "I'm standing in line and all I can think of is this is another place where only extroverts are valued. I will not spend 4 more years of my life in a place where you have to yell to fit in." And she said, "As standing in line on my first day, I just quit. I made that decision. And as soon as I made the decision, I was overcome with this incredible feeling of peace. And I turned to my mom and my dad to say, 'Take me home,' like they said they would. But before I could say anything, you came out of the nearest building wearing the stupidest hat I have ever seen in my life. And you had a sign that said, 'Students Fighting Cystic Fibrosis.' And you had a bucket full of lollipops. And what you were doing is you were walking along this lineup of first-year students and their parents who couldn't leave the lineup. And you were trying to convince them to get up early on a Saturday morning and shine shoes for 8 hours for charity. And you're going along and you're making people laugh, and all of a sudden you get to me and you just stop. And you stare at me. It was creepy. Then you look at the guy next to me and you smile. And you pull a lollipop out of your bucket and you hold it out to him. And you say, "Dude, you have to stand next to this incredibly beautiful woman for 2 more hours. You should talk to her." Now, we're going to pause the story for a moment, because in the 20 years since, I have realized something. 1, not at all respectful of her personal space, and 2, incredibly heteronormative. However, we'll play this to the end, because it was okay this time. Wouldn't do it again, but I do want to recognize that. So I hold out this lollipop, and she goes, "I've never seen the guy before in my life, but I've never seen a human being get more embarrassed faster in my life. He turns beet red, he won't even look at me, he just does this with the lollipop." She says, "I feel so bad for him because everyone's staring at him. I take the lollipop from him. And as soon as I do, your entire demeanor changes and you look so upset. And you turn to my parents and you say, 'Look at your little girl. Look at your daughter. It is her first day away from home. Her first day without mom and dad to hold her hand. And already, she is taking candy from a stranger. Because everybody loses it for 20 feet in every direction, everybody loses it. And I don't know why, but in those moments where everybody was laughing, something switched in my brain. And I said, okay, don't quit today. Quit tomorrow. And she goes, then someone else did something the next day and I put it off another day. And eventually I forgot about it. And I graduate in a few weeks. And I haven't spoken to you once in the 4 years since that happened. But before you left, I had to come and tell you. You have been an incredibly important person in my life. And I'm going to miss you. Good luck, okay? And walks off. Don't do that. Don't drop the mic and wander, okay? And I think she realizes how messed up she made me, because she turns around and comes back and says, there's one more thing you really should know. I've been dating that guy for 4 years since you introduced us that morning. A year and a half after I moved 1,000 miles away, the two of them invited me to their wedding. She married the dude. But here's the thing. I don't remember that. Like, I searched my memory for that moment because I was awesome in that moment, and I would like to remember that. But that drives so much of the work that I do, that maybe the biggest moment of leadership in my life, maybe the biggest impact I ever had on another human being, a moment that had a girl walk up to a total stranger 4 years later and say, you have been an incredibly important part of my life, it's a moment that I don't even remember. From a very young age, we are taught that we need to achieve things and acquire things so that people look at us as if we're a leader, so that we feel we have the right to raise our own hands and call ourselves leaders, that we've lost sight of an essential fact. The primary determinant of how other people view us and how we view and judge ourselves is how we behave on a day-to-day basis. That is where leadership is born, and that is the only place where we need to evaluate leadership. Leadership is closing the gap between the person that you want to be and how you are actually behaving every single day, and the leadership test can help you do that. How many of you in this room have what I would refer to as a lollipop moment? A moment where someone walked up to you and made you feel as if you were an important person in their life and you had no idea that you had that impact. By show of hands, how many of you have a moment like that? How many of you just raised your hands and told the person who created that moment that they did it for you? Like a third. Like, I don't get that. We live in a world where we celebrate birthdays, where all you have to do is not die for 365 days, and you get a cake. But we let people walk around. We let people walk around who made our lives and our organizations and our campuses better. We don't tell them that. If you get nothing else from me today, tell the people who have made your lives and your organization and your campuses better. Tell them that, because leadership recognized is leadership created. And every one of you creates moments like that. Every single one of you creates lollipop moments every day. And if you think you don't, just think of the hands that didn't go back up. You're just one of the many, many people who haven't been told yet. It's scary to believe that we can matter that much to each other. It's almost frightening to think we can have that kind of impact on other people when we're not paying attention. Because as long as we keep leadership bigger than us, and as long as we keep it beyond us, and as long as we keep it about changing the world, we're giving ourselves an excuse to not expect it from ourselves and each other every day. But you're living it every day. Let me prove it. Do you mind closing your eyes? We're not going to do any shifty. Just all of you close your eyes. And if I say something that's true, put your hand up and keep it up and keep your eyes closed, okay? Raise your hand and keep it up if there's someone in this room who made you feel like you were better than you thought you were. Raise your hand and keep it up if someone in this room inspires you and makes you want to be better. Raise your hand and keep it up if someone in this room has forgiven you at some point. Now open your eyes. Look around. Look around at how lucky we are to be alive right now. Because there's a lot of leadership in this room. My friends, thank you so very much for letting me share those ideas with you. Thank you. God bless you.